Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Divine Feminine Healers podcast. It is your host, Angelica, intuitive healer. And today we are going to talk about Scorpio season, which we have officially entered on October 22nd. And I love this time of year in general. I think it's finally the time where our culture accepts all the witchy things that a lot of us are just usually doing year round, but we finally can be out in the open about it. So I love Halloween. I love the spirit of dressing up. I love the color black and candles and coziness and all the things that come along with this season of just turning inward for deep self-reflection. Especially in the Northern Hemisphere, as we get into the cooler months, this is where we begin to detach from being extroverted, being out and about in the world and always having something to do. And we get closer towards slowing down, tending to our self-reflective practices, our spiritual practices, so that we can have an inner alchemization, which later will translate to what happens in an outer transformation when we come into the year ahead. So this time of year is so necessary to reset, to reboot. And for some reason for me, I'm usually like such a summer person, but it's feeling really good to take that time. And intuitively, I feel so called to go inward right now. Now, Scorpio season is the perfect time to start going inward. And I feel very akin to this sign because that's where my natal moon is. And actually, some of my closest friends have their natal moon in Scorpio. A bunch of my clients have a Scorpio placement. Family members, friends, all have Scorpios in their chart in a significant way. So I feel very protective in true Scorpio fashion of this sign because I think it often gets misconstrued. Now, I firmly believe that there are shadows and there are light aspects to every sign. I don't think that there are bad signs. I think that we just live in this world where we like to write things off as being right or wrong, and it's easy for us to compartmentalize in that way. And while the people in our life who are displaying the shadow aspects of Scorpio can cause more strife and challenge, that does not mean that all Scorpios are bad and manipulative. That just means that's how that energy is being expressed in that person. And you always have the will. So if there is a sign that you have and you're like, oh, I'm so don't want to have this sign, the more that you can own it and realize that you have control, you have free will of how that energy is going to express itself through you. So whenever someone says like, oh, he's a Scorpio or she's a Scorpio, I always want to get to know that person, what are their life experiences, how are they expressing, because there's so many different facets to each sign, how are they uniquely expressing that, and getting to know the person on that deeper level will always give you a better understanding and help you to not be so confined to the stereotypes that we can fall into with astrology signs. So I'll start with that. But let's get into Scorpios. So the sun is officially in Scorpio on October 23rd, or I think October 22nd, one of those days. And this is the season where it's time to go inward and be self-reflective. Now, I want to give the shadow sides of Scorpio, and these are some of the traps that we can fall in, especially during this time of year. Scorpios, because they are ruled by Mars, they have a lot of fire in them. So they're passionate, they're highly motivated, they're determined. But if they are not processing their emotions properly, sometimes they can be angry, quick-tempered, frustrated. And yeah, it can just come out in other ways like jealousy. They are also a huge water sign. And because of this water sign, there's so much depth to Scorpio. It's like this endless void where they're constantly wanting to go deeper and deeper and evolve and grow more and more. And because of this, water is really associated with our emotions. Scorpios feel the most. They feel the deepest out of any other sign. And we can see this as a gift and we can see this as a challenge. Those of you who have Scorpio placements know you feel things very intensely. Like sometimes when you're going through a challenge in your life, it can almost feel like there's like a sword in your body or someone's twisting the knife and you can actually feel that physical agony in your body. And I know that sounds really dramatic, but if you are a Scorpio, hopefully that gives you a bit of relief of like, yeah, it is really dramatic when I'm going through something. I could feel it so much. This is the extreme sensitivity that comes with having a Scorpio placement. And you can see it as a gift because this deep pain that you're able to experience has great emotional intelligence behind it and can allow you to strengthen your intuition. Having that deep level of knowing helps you to strengthen your own inner knowing and get closer to the truth of who you are and stand in your power. It's a beautiful, beautiful gift to have. However, if you are not aware that this is a gift, and when you are experiencing something, you feel it very heavily, how you choose to respond to that emotion is going to determine how your Scorpio's-ness expresses itself. So, for example, if you are going through an emotional period and it's just too much for you to experience, the emotions feel too hard to process, you may choose to reach for a substance. You may choose to numb in some type of way because the emotions can feel too overwhelming. So this is a shadow side to Scorpios, is avoidant tendencies, avoiding their emotions and using distractions or numbing tools so that they don't have to feel as deep. It just becomes so overwhelming. And just giving yourself the understanding of, okay, yeah, like the reason why I'm turning to these vices or these addictive behaviors is because it feels really hard to process. So what can I do to support myself to feel really safe in these emotions? That it's okay that I'm feeling things deeply. It's okay to be in a period of grief and mourning and to allow those emotions just to be exactly as they are. Another quality of Scorpios is this sense of transformation. Like they are always changing and evolving. They are always wanting to grow. That's why when you get into a conversation with Scorpios, it can feel like, oh my God, we are literally diving to the depths of the sea in this conversation right now. I've been on first dates with people where I don't like to bullshit. I like to get right into it. I don't like to have superficial conversations. And sometimes at the end of the conversation, that person that I'm a date with is like, wow, I've never talked this much with someone, let alone on a first date. And that is just like such a classic Scorpio move that happens. So there has to be this deep desire for evolution. Otherwise, when Scorpios don't evolve and grow, then all of their dense emotions, all of that heaviness just sticks with them, and it causes them to be overly attached. And this is why sometimes, and we see in relationships, Scorpios can be overly attached or possessive. It's because they have a backlog of so many emotions that are weighing them down that they're not able to break free and find a transformation. So that's why it's so important to commit to your growth and to your evolution, especially even if you're not a Scorpio, just during Scorpio season. It's a time to really look at yourself. Look at the parts of yourself that you've been avoiding, the parts of yourself that you don't want to feel, that feel too hard to see, because in recognizing them, you're able to transform them and you're able to grow into your highest evolvement. You're able to release yourself from the attachments that you've had to other people, places, things, beliefs, habits, and you're able to really grow into your highest expression. It's truly just a beautiful gift to watch a Scorpio who is in their power, because they go through all of these evolutions. And that's why I also love Scorpios, is because usually at multiple points in their life, you can look at them and they'll say this to themselves, like, I'm a completely different person. Who I was then and who I am now is completely different. And for those who do not understand Scorpios, they may write them off as being flaky or as changing, and like, you're not the person you were meant to be. And as a Scorpio, they need to surround themselves with people who understand that at the heart and soul of who they are is always going to be the same. But on the exterior, they're always going to be ripping off new layers of skin to get to the truth of who they really are. Scorpios also related to the metaphor of Kundalini and transformation because of the shedding of the skin that happens. So during this period, yes, it's a time to go inward. It's a time to reflect. Okay, what part of my shell is actually so uncomfortable right now that I want to release, that I'm ready to take my shield off from? What part of myself am I able to see and to look at with loving kindness, and to be able to release and to let go of, so I can step into this next phase of my life? So I shared 3 messages that are coming up in the collective right now for this season on my IG Live. You can head there if you want to watch the whole video. I also do personal readings, which tend to also hit messages of whoever needs to hear it in the moment. So definitely check out my IG Live on my Instagram page. I try to go live every Wednesday around 12 or so Pacific Standard Time, and I do individual card pulls. So check me out there if you want an individual card reading. But I'm going to give some collective messages now at the end. So the first message is now is the time to change and to be bold and to take that next step. A lot of you are at that point where you're like, this layer of skin that I have on right now is so uncomfortable. I would rather rip it off than to continue going on wearing this like this anymore. I am sick of this broken record story that is going on repeat in my head. I need to release it. I need to make changes. No more bullshit. Let's do it. So a lot of you are at this phase of your life right now. We are ready to take that next step forward. It's okay to be scared. It's okay that you've gotten to this point. Sometimes it has to get so uncomfortable that there's no other option. In fact, that to me is the only way. It's like kind of what I think about with mild addictions. Like that addiction you have to get so over it that you're like, I've played this story out so many times. I'm sick of going back to that addictive behavior or substance that it's not even fun for me to do anymore. And I'm ready to release it and let it go. So if you are in that place, we are ready to make changes, trust that you know what that next step is and be bold enough to take it. This doesn't mean that it's going to change overnight. It's going to take time, but take that next step and just trust that that is a step in the next direction. Another common theme that's coming up right now is grief. So from now until about mid-November, the veil is said to be thin. This is when a lot of souls choose to transition from their physical body back into the spiritual world. So we may have lost family members around this time. We may be losing family members around this time. And it can be a huge grief cycle. Now, this could be a death of a lot of other things as well, relationships and our past identities. So taking time to really grieve what's coming up when you're feeling that heaviness in your body, and especially for my Scorpios, I know when I feel that heaviness in my body, my initial reaction is not to feel, process, and heal. It's to avoid. And it takes me sometimes a while for me to wake up and be like, oh yeah, this is grief. So just notice if you're feeling that in your body and just bringing awareness to that sensation is the first step. And allowing yourself to grieve, like really allow yourself to feel these things that you're going through and give yourself as much space to feel the pain. Feeling pain is no joke. It is not for the faint-hearted. Give yourself as much time and support and healing that you need. Surround yourself with the people who are going to give you the kind of loving kindness and compassion that you need. This doesn't mean picking people who are just going to allow you to be complacent, but give you the kind of love that you really need right now, the kind of support that is really going to get you to your next soul's highest evolvement. So allow yourself to grieve. If you're feeling sad, just cry. It's really hard for me to experience that emotion of sadness. That's not my go-to emotion. And these past couple of days, I've just been feeling just a huge wave of grief. And I know that is collective as well. So be with the emotion, let the waterworks go. It actually releases so many other happy hormones after you get rid of that cry and that grief, and it helps to move things so much quicker. And the last message that came up was grounding in the present moment. So around this time of year in Ayurveda, it's called Vata season, where anxiety and overwhelm can be kind of our go-to emotions. That's just mirrored by what's going on in nature. It tends to be a little bit more windy and dry in the Northern Hemisphere during this time of year. And so grounding is necessary, slowing down, literally feeling like you're just pressing pause. Or what I like that visual is, you know how you can make this podcast episode go to 1.2x, you could also make it go to 0.5x. That's what you want to think of hitting in your life right now. Hit your life to go on to 0.5x so that you can really start to ground in the present. Come back to the rituals that ground you, morning routine, slowness, nature walks, talks with friends, clearing things off your list, because the more you can pull yourself into the present, you can awaken to what is coming up for you right now, what part of yourself, what shadows that you need to see and look at so that you can transform into this next identity that you're going into. Now is the time for the inner work and the inner transformation, and we're all doing it together. You're not here, you're not doing it alone. Although I know it can feel like that. I know it can feel really heavy. So if you're really going through it right now and you want some extra support, I have one-on-one intuitive healing sessions. This is a full Reiki healing session where I clear energetic blockages and you actually feel a visceral shift in your body because of all the clearing that happens in these sessions. And I also send you intuitive messages from your guides to you. I love these sessions. They have been such a gift to come back to after not doing them for quite a few years. I get to see you as your highest self, and nothing feels more empowering than feeling seen as the best version of yourself. And that's ultimately where you're going. So if you've been wanting to make changes and you need to step into what that next step is for you, in these sessions, I also give practical advice and steps that you can take to get towards that version of yourself. They're really the best. So if you want to sign up, I'll have that link in the show notes for a one-on-one intuitive healing session. And lastly, if you love this podcast, if you've listened to at least a few episodes, I'd be so grateful if you commented, rated, and review on either Apple or Spotify. It would mean the world to me. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you all take this time to tend to yourself, be present, make bold changes, go inward, and take the time to grieve. I'm sending you all a lot of love, and I'll see you next week on the podcast.